Sean. My name is Debbie Cestaro-Seifer. I am a nurse by trade, and I work with the Northeast Caribbean AIDS Education and Training Center. And my work is funded by the federal government, and I focus on infectious diseases. I don't have any disclosures to make. I'm not going to try to sell anybody anything. I'm just going to talk about sleep and the importance of sleep and how can we all get more sleep and better quality of sleep. And that's all about sleep hygiene. Trying to get it so it would. There we go. That's better. Hopefully you can see the slides even better now.
Yes, perfect.
Excellent, great. So what I'm hoping that you can walk away from this program with is recognizing what's the number of hours that we should be getting every night on the average for our sleep. And it really depends a little bit on our age. The second thing is that you would be able to discuss some of the negative physical and behavioral health consequences of being sleep deprived. And you may already have some of these in your mind because you know what it's like and how your body feels when you're sleep deprived. And then finally, describing strategies that might enhance the quality and quantity of the sleep that you're currently getting. So sleep is really about self-care. It's about taking care of ourselves, just as we need to eat and we need to get exercise. We certainly need to sleep. And I actually, midday today, got off a call on a sleep researcher. I'm very interested in sleep and how it supports our health. And the researcher was going through all the animal models that she studies as she looks at how sleep affects us and how the lack of it negatively affects us. And she basically said that if we don't get enough sleep, we end up dying. It causes death in all mammals. And when we don't have enough sleep, it makes us more impulsive. And the reason why she said that was because sleep deprivation affects our brain, which I think is really, really interesting. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But it's all about self-care. How do we take better care of ourselves? Well, I like to know what my body is doing so I can take good care of it and helping me understand what my brain is doing. So first of all, what's the word or the term sleep hygiene mean? Well, I looked it up and it's about the habits and practices that help us have a better sleep on a regular basis. And we're talking about the quantity, the number of hours that we sleep over time, and then also the quality. How restful is that sleep? Do we wake up every hour? Or is it something that we do 5 hours and then we wake up and then we go back to sleep? Everybody has their own pattern. And so to think about that a little bit is what we're going to do today. So this is the part where you get to think about your own self. If I were with you in person, we would talk about it as a group, but think about this for yourself. On an average, how many hours of sleep do you get per night? And then I'm going to ask you one other thing to think about. Now that you've got how many hours you think that you sleep a night, what percentage of the time do you have difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep? 0% of the time, good sleep all the time, no problems. 25% of the time, do you find yourself having difficulties? 50% of the time, do you have difficulties? Or 75% or more, would you say you have difficulty sleeping? As you can see by the time on this clock, if this is in the middle, if this is in the morning, this is an awfully early hour to be awake, unless you're a shift worker and this is the time that you're working. So young adults, how much do young adults need to sleep? Well, I found some stats that I thought would be interesting to share. And they found out at the University of Arizona that 23% of athletes reported experiencing fatigue at excessive levels. So they got to say how much fatigue they felt, a little bit, mild, moderate, but 23%, that's almost 1/4% of all the athletes at a big university like the University of Arizona said they felt tired. This is upon waking up. The next group was from Brown University, and they said that students concluded that female students suffered more from sleep problems, having difficulties with sleep, more than male students did. And 30% of the female students reported experiencing wake ups during the night or having trouble or difficulty sleeping and staying asleep, where 18% of the male students reported that same thing. And then finally, I did find that most college students, on average, when they did a national look, it was 6 to 6.9 hours of sleep a night. I wonder, is that enough? And that's what we're going to find out a little bit about. So first of all, the effects of reduced sleep in our head. What does it do to our brain? Well, if you've taken Psych 101, you know that that frontal part of the brain is basically the executor. It makes decisions for us. And we have found that multiple sleep problems affect negatively the prefrontal cortex, our cognition, the cognition center of the brain. That's our intellect. That's our ability to think of new and interesting ideas. It's our judgment, making good judgment based on sound information. It's about our personality, our impulses, and it affects our math and our language reasoning. So you can imagine if someone's really sleep deprived, no matter how much studying they've done, they may not be able to execute that information that's stored in their brain because they can't get it out. It's not making enough sense. It's there. It's just that on some level, the brain is asleep too. And that's what I wanted to bring home to you is that, you know, we all need sleep, all mammals. In fact, I found out that a whale sleeps 20 minutes at a time. We sleep a lot longer than that at a time, and we should. Worms sleep. I mean, didn't think of that. Dragons sleep, insects sleep. They have found, they study this, that there is sleeping going on, and the less sleep an animal has, the less productive and the abilities that they have to protect themselves goes downhill. What we found is that tired students are more likely to get sick. A lot of studies have done this, and I show you this picture here. This is a protein floating around inside us, and proteins are very protective, and they are released by our body's immune system while we sleep. So if we're not sleeping very well or sleeping very much, we have fewer protective proteins called cytokines that are released by the immune system that result in decreased numbers of antibodies. And these are protective components of our immune system that help fight off disease, especially viruses. And of course, this is quite the time to be talking about viruses since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. A study that was done not too long ago in 2019 looked at a large number of students, and they found that 50% of the students were getting sleep that was between the 7 and 9 hours of sleep. So that blue that you're seeing, that's half the pie here. 50% of the students were getting a reasonable amount of sleep, 7 to 9. My research shows that we should be getting 8 to 10 as a young adult, because your brains are still functioning and learning and growing. So with that being said, the study also found that half of the group that were studied weren't getting enough sleep. 14% were getting less than 6 hours a night, and 36% were getting between 6 and just under 7. So that is not enough sleep to protect our bodies and to make sure that we're taking good care of ourselves and to be able to perform at our best level, whether we're an athlete, whether we're a student, whether we've got a job, or maybe we've got all three of those things going on. So poor sleep habits, not getting enough sleep, is really a problem for all ages. And what I have found is that it's more of a problem for young people as well as people in advanced age. I like to call that our elders. We all need sleep at this ends of the continuum. Not getting enough sleep is linked to heart disease, hypertension, high blood pressure, obesity, mood disorders, the way we think about things, perhaps making us more depressed or more anxious, and then brain diseases such as dementia and substance use disorders. And for college students specifically, not getting enough sleep seems to impair mood and cognitive performance. Students do worse on exams. So what is mood? Mood is about how comfortable we are in ourselves and our abilities to go do and enjoy things in our day. Our depression, anxiety would fall into mood disorders and substance use disorders. Cognitive performance shows up in lower grades, not feeling very motivated. Diet and eating behaviors shows up in risk-taking behaviors and creates, in some people, more sedentary lifestyle, meaning you're not getting out, not doing, not getting exercise, not moving your body. So why do some college students have difficulty sleeping at night? Well, the research shows that there's a lot of tech being used, and certainly right now, everyone's using lots of tech. I'm using so much tech, I can't imagine how I'd be working without it, but it's a lot of tech, it's a lot of screen time. So technology overuse has been shown to interfere with our ability to sleep. Binge watching television. We don't have to wait every week to watch a show. We can do it all in 1 or 2 days. Our favorite programs, which causes a lot intensive screen time. And then irregular sleep patterns because of our work. Depending on what kind of student you are and what your major and minors are, you may have irregular sleep patterns and you may be working at the same time, whether it's a job that you're getting paid for or for a job that you need to do because it's part of your life. And then 30 to 50% of students do take daytime naps, and they're finding that some of these naps are very long. And the longer the nap is, the more it may interfere with our ability to fall asleep at night. A power nap, a 15-minute to 20-minute nap, seems to be the more powerful nap in that it is just what we need, a little bit of a doze, not while we're driving, of course, but a doze so that we can feel powered up. But when we sleep more than 20 minutes, we actually start going into a very deep sleep, which interferes with our ability to fall asleep at nighttime or whenever our time to sleep is. So I do want to explain the word insomnia. Insomnia are sleep disorders. It's having trouble falling asleep, staying asleep. Some people wake up early in the morning, like 4:30 in the morning, and they can't get back to sleep because their mind starts racing. The person who's sleep deprived often feels so tired when they wake up in the morning. They're sluggish, and even a couple of good cups of coffee or tea doesn't seem to help. Insomnia seems to reduce a person's energy, their level of energy, and their mood, but it can also affect their health, their school, their work performance, and really quality of life. Many students have reported to me in my years of working on campus that they just don't have the energy, and they start eliminating things that they really like to do. They start not doing these things, not showing up for practices, not enjoying some of the other activities that's part of being a student at school. There was a study called the Sleep Health Study at Penn State, and it was a small study, 53 students, but they were trying to see if students could, with help, increase their sleep time. So at week 1, they did some baseline some assessments to find out how is everybody doing without any education. And they found that 40% of the participants of this 53 students reported excessive sleepiness, meaning they felt excessively tired. These people could have been sleep deprived. And these individuals also there was a monitoring device given to these individuals after they did their assessment. And at week 2, the students were asked to wear the monitoring device, which checked on how long they were sleeping and how many times they would get up. It's like a watch. And then the students were to repeat the assessment. But the only things the students were asked to change at week 2 was to add an additional hour of sleep to every night. They didn't care how they did it, but they wanted the students to try to get an extra hour of sleep. So do you want to hear what happened? 77% of the students increased their nighttime sleep by more than 15 minutes per night. That's pretty significant. And that was just for a week. 66% increased their sleep by more than 30 minutes. So they got closer to that 1 hour goal that the researchers had actually set. So the results of this study, although very small, showed that during week 2, more than half of the students were able to increase their sleep time to the sense that they would feel less sleepy. In fact, these students who were able to increase their sleep actually did not report any excessive sleepiness. They might have still felt sleepy, but it was milder. And then the other thing that I think is fantastic that the researchers found, that the participants' systolic blood pressure, systolic is the top number. As you may know, there's a top number and a bottom number to a blood pressure. That top number is called the systolic blood pressure. The students that were in the study who increased their sleep reduced the top number on their blood pressure by 7 points. That's pretty cool. So the takeaways of this interesting small study was that there's an opportunity to help students and young people in general, and hopefully people of all ages, to increase their sleep with very little training. Just asking people to do it and thinking of ways of how they would do it. So education can work, and the encouragement, just making people aware that they might be able to increase their sleep on their own and the benefits that they might feel from it. Certainly having a better blood pressure and feeling less sleepy is a benefit that one would feel right away. So what gets in the way of sleeping, of feeling sleepy? Well, it's not getting enough sleep, not having a good sleep. And there's a neuroscientist out there, Anne-Marie Chang, who has been doing a lot of work on sleep, especially in young people. And she found that people who read a book on a glowing screen, which is what we all do, and I raise my hand, I do it before bed, that we take longer to fall asleep. When we're using our screens, our phones, when we use our computers, our laptops, iPads, whatever it is we've got, if we do that right before we sleep, it takes longer for us to fall asleep. And that we tend to feel less alert the next morning compared to reading a printed book with external lighting. Remember, on these devices we use, it's backlit. But on a book, a actual book that you touch and feel, you have environmental lighting, which is a different type of lighting, and it's softer. So this was an important finding that she has. So I created a case. We've got Marcus. He's a student at the best university. He was diagnosed with sleep deprivation disorder, which is a true disorder. And this happened during his first semester of his junior year. Between being a full-time student and working full-time, Marcus found himself losing more and more sleep, and he couldn't catch up. He explained that his entire mood started changing. He wasn't upbeat anymore. He didn't feel positive. He wasn't engaging in activities, the social activities and the people that he normally would stay connected to. He wasn't motivated as he once was, and he could not stay focused for long periods of time, which is really interfering with work and school. So let's go backwards at time. Now Marcus is going to need more help than ever because he's gotten so far behind with his sleep, which they say that more than 2 hours of getting behind is very difficult to actually get back that sleep. So some of us who might think, oh, I'll make it up on the weekend, if you're that sleep deprived and maybe have gotten behind by 3 and 4 hours that you really needed during the week, that you may have trouble catching up on the weekend by the fact that you will have trouble falling asleep. And when we travel, if you're going across the country or to an area where you're making large changes in time, if you're making more than 2 hours of time, it's harder to catch up. It's harder to get on the new time. So if we go back with Marcus, what could Marcus have done? What could Marcus's friends have done to help him in recognizing that he wasn't himself, that he wasn't showing up and not connected to friends and not doing as well in school? What could his school community have done to help him? I wonder. So to improve student sleep, I found out, well, what do different programs do? What have universities done across the country? Well, the University of Arizona actually provides a sleep education and tracking system for students that want to increase their sleep quality and the athletes that want to increase their athletic performance. And some of the coaches are actually sending the students who are athletes to this sleep education and tracking program. Baylor University offers students extra credit. I love that, for succeeding in what they call the 8-hour sleep challenge. Students who involve and get engaged in this get more sleep. They get 8 hours or more of sleep, and they seem to be getting better grades. Harvard students can take a sleep class to learn about better sleep hygiene and habits. They don't get any extra credit, which I don't think is quite too fair. The impact of stay-at-home orders right now on college students, and all of us for that matter, does increase our anxiety. We have more to worry about, more concerns. We have more tech time. It comes with being a student or working. We have to do our work. We have to complete the schoolwork we have so that we can progress. And we're getting less physical exercise. Not everybody is getting less physical exercise, but some people are reporting that. So I wanted to see, now that we are in this part of COVID, and we did have periods of time where we have been sequestered at home, safer at home, orders to make sure we stay at home, what has happened for students? So a Colorado study was done with a sample size of 139 students. They assessed student sleep patterns before the stay-at-home orders and afterwards. Students there were put into stay-at-home orders for 3 months. And they found that during the stay-at-home orders, students actually started reporting getting more sleep. They were averaging 30 minutes or more on weekdays and 24 minutes or more on weeknights. But that is a very positive thing. But then when I looked at an Italian study, as well as a study from Wuhan, China, I found in the Italian study, which was a much bigger study, 400 people in that study, 307 were students. The rest of those were administrative staff, that their sleep patterns pre-COVID and during what they called lockdown, which was a 3-month period, found that there was a significant increase of psychological distress and symptoms of mental illness, depression, anxiety, and worsening of quality of sleep during what they called lockdown due to COVID, and a much greater impact on students than the administrative staff. And interestingly enough, a greater influence negatively on females than males. And the Wuhan, China study that I read also found that more women were reporting more distress and more sleep problems due to the stay-at-home orders. So now I'm saying, okay, we got to put our hands in the air and welcome self-care and welcome the ability to learn about how can we take better care of ourselves during what is a very unsettling time with COVID-19. How do we thrive in this disruptive environment? And how do we promote our own resiliency? And sleep is definitely part of that equation, or part of that solution. Sleep is self-care, and sometimes we just have to turn it off. I like to always say to myself, hey, I know as much as I can right now, and if I don't get some sleep, I won't be able to perform in the morning. And what I do have in my frontal cortex won't be accessible to me if I only have 4 hours of sleep. If I have 7, and maybe even better, 8, I'm going to be able to access that information up there and use it so I can perform better in my job, and also if I'm being tested in any way. For example, I'm being tested right now as I promote and share with you the research that slides that I've put together. So I do have resources on sleep. There's the Academy of Sleep Medicine, there's sleepeducation.org, and there's National Sleep Foundation with really cool tools and ways to better learn things that might help us get a better sleep and learn more about sleep and what we can do to promote sleep on campus for everybody and to work on sleep, our own sleep patterns. So I hope that you've got some questions or I've stirred up a conversation.
Thank you, Debbie. So thank you so much. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and I don't know if there's still folks on the call, but I'd be happy to entertain any questions about sleep or anything that I've shared here today.
Yes, they're still here. So I have a question. So what is recommended if you are in that group of individuals where your sleep is disrupted, which would be considered, I guess, insomnia, like you wake up in the middle of the night, you're not able to go back to sleep, or you're up for some time. So what is recommended to address that?
A great question. Well, first of all, you want to be sure that there's nothing physiological. You want to be sure that, sometimes waking up in the middle of the night can be a sign of some health issue. So you want to be sure that you've had just a regular health exam. There are some people that wake up to urinate, use the bathroom, and there may be a reason why they're having increased frequency of urination. That may be a function of our ages, but it also could be that we've got a urinary tract infection going or some other concern that could be alleviated by speaking with your healthcare professional. Now, that's not always the case, and I think your question is really great. What we know not to do is to get up and sit in front of the television and a screen. The best recommendation is trying to have, if you're waking up because you need water or because you need to use the restroom, try to make it short and sweet and hop right back into bed. They say that if you're laying there for 15 minutes and your mind is starting to get racy, meaning that you can't stop thinking about maybe what you're going to be doing the next day, to take some reading material that is relaxing. Something, a book that you're reading for reflection, not something that's related to work. Don't start working on a class homework or putting a class together or something from the job. Music can also be very helpful. And also stretching, laying in bed and stretching, not just tossing, which is often happening when we have trouble getting back to sleep, but stretching, actually going from side to side and seeing what can you do with your spine. Do you actually hear some popping going on? And sighing, breathing and sighing. And sighing is audible. When I breathe in and I breathe out, I sigh like this. And that actually supports our parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxation component of our nervous system. So that instead of our nervous system ramping up, we're bringing it down. We're de-escalating it. We're saying, let that bad air out, and let's sigh, and let's let the body reposition itself in terms of relaxation. Let's get ourselves in relaxation mode. So stretching and breathing slowly with long exhalations and an audible sigh, unless you're going to wake somebody up next to you. You can maybe leave off the sigh, but that can be very, very helpful. Those are some things I can think of off the cuff.
Yes, thank you. That's very helpful.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments?
I would say, anybody else wants to speak? Don't be shy. Okay. So I would say this was very useful in the sense that it's important that we think about sleep. I mean, it's something that we naturally do, but again, sleep hygiene, just like taking care of our mental health and physical health, sleeping is definitely tied to all of those. And so this was a great conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. And I do have my slide up here. Let me put it. But if anyone wants a copy of these slides, I mean, gosh, you can use it for class, whatever you need it for, personal. Here's my email address. Feel free to reach out to me, and I'll send you a PDF copy of the slides to help.
Was somebody else trying to say something? Okay, I thought somebody else was saying something. If not, we thank you very much, Miss Castro.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to join you on this really fun day of learning about all kinds of different health and wellness behaviors that we can always improve.
I agree. And thank you to the students who attended as well.
Absolutely. I appreciate all of you.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you all. Take good care.